Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another episode of Read With Me. I'm yours truly, Isabel Bedell, and I'm here to read with you an amazing, amazing chapter by John C. Maxwell from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to dive deep within this book. Hello to all the new subscribers that have been coming in. Really happy that you're here. We're on a mission here to impact the lives of billions of people all over the world and, increase personal and financial freedom to all. And one of the tools that we're using for all of this is reading. Billionaires, learners are readers, leaders are readers. And we believe that there's secrets within each book that we read that will unlock hidden potential, new levels of awareness, new levels of greatness, new levels of influence, new addition into your life. Last particular law that we went over was the law of addition, and this one hit home for me. I'm gonna just start off with a little glimpse of what we covered, because if we are able to listen, and that was one of the key things that he was mentioning, John was mentioning in the law of addition, the previous chapter we covered. He's like, are you making things better for the people who follow you? Are you making things better for the people that follow you? And, that really hit home for me because it's our duty, it's our obligation for our presence on earth to be happy, to be joyful, to fulfill ourselves. And it should also, result into helping others. I believe, that's my belief. And I believe that this particular book has not only helped me calm and focus my intention, but it has also helped people all over the world. This book has sold over 1 million copies alone in English, and has been translated into over 260 different languages to really make a greater impact through leadership. Now, the law of solid ground. This is where trust is the foundation of leadership. And if you are a business owner, if you are a coach, if you are a person that is responsible for something, okay? Trust is sometimes one of the hardest things to develop. The whole thing of trust has to be earned. Trust can be broken so easily. Trust is something that you only get with people that have been with you for long periods of time. Well, let's get into it, shall we? Let's see what John has to say about this. How important is trust for a leader? Well, it is the most important thing. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Trust is the foundation of leadership. It is the glue that holds an organization together. Leaders cannot repeatedly break trust with people and continue to influence them. It just doesn't happen. And as a nation, we have seen our trust in leaders go up and down during the last several decades. Trust in President Richard Nixon became so low that he had no choice but to resign. He had lost his ability to influence. Bill Clinton was a remarkable, gifted leader, but questions of trust undermined his leadership. The corporate scandals of the 1990s shook people's confidence in business leadership. Reports of sexual harassment at the military academies undermined confidence in leadership in the armed services. And the accidents of abuse in the Catholic Church disillusioned many people in its leadership. Leaders cannot lose trust and continue to influence others. Trust is the foundation of leadership, and that's the law of solid ground. It wasn't the decisions, it was the leadership. I personally learned the power of the law of solid ground when I was the senior pastor of Skyline Church in San Diego area. In the fall of 1989, we had several new programs starting at the church in preparation for our exhausting Christmas show season were in full swing, and I was traveling quite a bit as a speaker. It was hectic, and because I was so busy, I let my choleric nature get the better of me and made a big mistake. I very quickly made three major decisions and implemented them. I changed some components of the Christmas show. I permanently discontinued our Sunday evening service, and I fired our staff member. Wow, that's pretty major. What's interesting is that none of these three decisions were wrong. The change in the Christmas program was beneficial. The Sunday evening service, though enjoyed by a few of the older members of the congregation, wasn't serving a need that wasn't already being met better elsewhere. And the staff member I fired had to go. And it was important that I not delay in dismissing him. My mistake was the way I made those three decisions. In an organization made up of many volunteers, decisions need to be processed correctly. And because everything in the church was going so well, I thought I could take a shortcut. Well, I was wrong. Ordinarily, I would gather my leaders, cast the vision for them, answer questions, and guide them through the issues. Then I would give them time to exert their influence with the next level of leaders in the church. And finally, once the timing was right, I would make a general announcement to everyone, giving them plenty of reassurance and encouraging people to be a part of the new vision. But I didn't do any of those things, and I should have known better. I should have known better. The result was mistrust. It wasn't long before I began to sense unrest among the people and to hear rumblings. At first, my attitude was that everyone should get over it and move on. But then I realized that the problem wasn't them, it was me. I had been so impatient. And on top of that, my attitude wasn't very positive. Not good when you're the guy who writes books on attitude. That's when I realized that I had broken the law of solid ground. For the first time in my career, my people were questioning me, and our relationship of trust was beginning to erode. As soon as I realized I was wrong, I publicly apologized to many people and asked for their forgiveness. Your people know when you make mistakes. The real question is whether you're going to fess up. And if you do, you can often regain their trust. Fortunately, that's what happened with me. And from then on, I was more careful to correctly process decisions. I learned firsthand that when it comes to leadership, you just can't take shortcuts, no matter how long you've been leading your people. Damn, what a chapter. Look at this. Your people know when you make mistakes. Your people know when you make mistakes. Trust is like change in a leader's pocket. Each time you make a good leadership decision, you earn more change. Each time you make a poor decision, you pay out some change to the people. And all leaders have a certain amount of change in their pocket when they start in a new leadership position. And whatever they do, either builds up their change or depletes it. If leaders make one bad decision after another, they keep paying out change. Then one day, after making one last bad decision, they suddenly and irreparably run out of change. It doesn't even matter if the last blunder was big or small. At that point, it's too late. And when you're out of change, you're out as a leader. Strong. In contrast, leaders who keep making good decisions and keep recording wins for the organization build up change. And then even if they make a huge blunder, they still have plenty of change left over. And that's the kind of history I had at Skyline for 8 years. I had made good decisions and earned the people's trust. And that is why I was able to regain their trust very quickly. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Trust is the foundation of leadership. How does a leader build trust? By consistently exemplifying competence, connection, and character. People will give occasional mistakes based on the ability, especially if they can see that you're still growing as a leader, and they will give you some time to connect. But they won't trust someone who has slips in character. In that area, even occasional lapses are lethal. All effective leaders know this truth. Craig Weatherup, who retired as a founding chairman and CEO of the Pepsi Bottling Group, acknowledges people will tolerate honest mistakes, but if you violate their trust, you will find it very difficult to ever regain their confidence. And that is one reason that you need to treat trust as your most precious asset. You may fool your boss, but you can never fool your colleagues or subordinates. General Norman points to the significance of character. Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you must be willing to go without one, be without strategy. Character and leadership credibility always go hand in hand. The president of the U.S. Business and Industrial Council said, this is Anthony Harrigan, the role of character always has been the key factor in the rise and fall of nations, and one can be sure that America is no exception to this rule of history. We won't survive as a country because we are smarter or more sophisticated, but we are, we hope, stronger inwardly. And in short, character is the only effective bulwark against internal and external forces that lead to a country's disintegration or collapse. Character makes trust possible, and trust makes leadership possible. And that is the law of solid ground. Character communicates. Whenever you lead people, it's as if they consent to take a journey with you. The way that trip is going to turn out is predicted by your character. With good character, the longer the trip is, the better it seems. But if your character is flawed, the longer the trip is and the worse it gets. Why? Well, because no one enjoys spending time with someone he doesn't trust. That goes with she too, and they. Okay? A person's character quickly communicates many things to others. Here are the most important ones. Character communicates consistency. Leaders without inner strength can't be counted on day after day because their ability to perform changes constantly. NBA great Jerry West commented, "You can't get too much done in life if you only work on the days when you feel good." If your people don't know what to expect from you as a leader, at some point, they won't look at you for leadership. When I think of leaders who epitomize consistency of character, the first person who comes to mind is Billy Graham. Regardless of the personal religious beliefs, everybody trusts him. Why? Well, because he has a modeled high character for more than half a century, and he lives out his values every day. And he never makes a commitment unless he is going to keep it. And he goes out of his way to personify integrity. Character communicates potential. British politician and writer John Morley observed, "No man can climb out beyond the limitations of his own character. Weak character is limiting. Who do you think has the greater potential to achieve great dreams and have a positive impact on others? Someone who is honest, disciplined, and hardworking, or someone who is deceitful, impulsive, and lazy?" It sounds obvious when it's phrased that way, doesn't it? Talent alone is never enough. It must be bolstered by a character if a person desires to go far. Think about someone like the NFL's Terrell Owens. Few football players have this talent, yet he seems unable to get along with his teammates whenever he plays. So if he keeps going on the same track, he will never fulfill his potential as a player. And poor character is like a time bomb taken away. It's only a matter of time before it blows up a person's ability to perform and the capacity to lead. Why is that? Well, because people with weak character are not trustworthy, and trust is the foundation of leadership. Weak character. Craig Weatherup explains, you don't build trust by talking about it, you build trust by achieving results, always with integrity, in a manner that shows real personal regard for the people with whom you work. And when a leader's character is strong, people trust him, and they trust in his ability to release their potential. That not only gives his followers hope for the future, but it also promotes a strong belief in themselves and their organization. Character also communicates respect. When you don't have character within, you can't earn respect without. When you don't have character within, you can't earn respect without. And respect is absolutely essential for lasting leadership. How do leaders earn respect? Well, they earn respect by making sound decisions, by admitting their mistakes, and by putting what's best for their followers and the organization ahead of their personal agendas. By putting what's best for their followers and the organization ahead of their personal agendas. By admitting their mistakes and putting what's best for the followers in the organization ahead of their personal agendas. Years ago, a movie was made about the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment and its Colonel Robert Gould Shaw. The film was called Glory, and though some of its plot was fictionalized, the Civil War story of Shaw's journey with his men and of the respect he earned from them was real. The movie recounted the formation of the unit in the Union Army, which was the first to be composed of an African-American soldier. Shaw, a white officer, took command of the regiment, oversaw recruiting, selected only the white officers, equipped the men, and then trained them as soldiers. He drove them hard, knowing that their performance in battle would either vindicate or condemn the value of the Black people as soldiers and citizens in the minds of many of the white Northerners. In the process, the soldiers and Shaw earned one another's respect. A few months after the training was complete, the men of the 54th got the opportunity to prove themselves in the Union assault on Confederate Fort Wagner in South Carolina. Shaw's biographer, Russell Duncan, said of the attack, with a final admonition to prove yourselves, men, Shaw positioned himself in front and ordered forward. Years later, one soldier remembered that the regiment fought hard because Shaw was in front, not behind. Almost half of the 600 men from the 54th who fought that day were wounded, captured, or killed. Though they fought valiantly, they were unable to take Fort Wagner, and Shaw, who had courageously led his men to the top of the fort parapet in the first assault, was killed alongside his men. Shaw's actions on that final day, solidified the respect his men already had for him. 2 weeks after that battle, Albinus Fisher, sergeant in 54th, said, "I still feel more eager for the struggle than I ever yet have, for now I wish to have revenge for the gallant colonel." The only thing that walks back from the tomb with the mourners and refuses to be buried is the character of a man. That is true. What a man is survives him. it can never be buried. Wow, what a line. That's a really good one. That's deep. Sean's character, strong to the last, had communicated to a level of respect to his men that lived beyond him. A leader's good character builds trust among his followers, but when a true leader breaks trust, he forfeits the ability to lead, and that's the law of solid ground. The beginning of the end of trust. The beginning of the end of trust. Earlier, I mentioned Watergate and the various public scandals that have undermined the public's confidence in leaders during the last 30 years. But the event that I believe began to erode the public's faith in the nation's leaders and developed strong skepticism in the country was the war in Vietnam. The actions taken by members of the Johnson administration, the mistakes made by Robert McNamara, and their unwillingness to face and admit those mistakes broke trust with the American people. They violated the law of solid ground, and the United States had been suffering from the repercussions ever since. Vietnam was already at war when President Kennedy and Robert McNamara, his Secretary of Defense, took office in January 1961. The Vietnam region had been a battleground for decades, and the United States got involved in the mid-1950s when President Eisenhower sent a small number of U.S. troops to Vietnam as advisors. I always say Vietnam, it's Vietnam. When Kennedy took office, he continued Eisenhower's policy. It was always his intention to let the South Vietnamese fight and win their own war. But over time, the United States became increasingly involved. And before the war was over, more than 500,000 American troops at one time served in Vietnam. If you experienced those war years, you may be surprised to know that in the beginning, American support for the war was very strong. And even as the number of troops being sent overseas rapidly increased and the casualties mounted, by 1966, more than 200,000 Americans had been sent to Vietnam. Yet 2/3 of all Americans surveyed by Lewis Harris believed that Vietnam was the place where the United States should stand and fight communism. And most people expressed the belief that the United States should stay until the fight was finished. First, trust, then support. Support eventually eroded. The Vietnam War was being handled very badly. And on top of that, our leaders continued the war even after they realized that we couldn't win it. But the worst mistake of all was that McNamara and the President Johnson weren't honest with the American people about it. And when people trust in the foundation of leadership, it ultimately destroyed the administration leadership. In the book, In Retrospect, McNamara recounts that he repeatedly minimized American losses and told only half-truths about the war. For example, he says, upon my return to Washington from Saigon on December 21st, 1963, I was less than candid when I reported to the press, and I said, we observed the results of a very substantial increase in Viet Cong activity, which is true, but then I added, we reviewed the plans of South Vietnamese, and we had every reason to believe that they will be successful, which was an overstatement at best. For a while, nobody questioned McNamara's statements because there was no reason to mistrust the country's leaders. But in time, people recognized that his words and the facts weren't matching up. And that's when the American public began to lose faith. Years later, McNamara admitted his failure. We of the Kennedy and Johnson administrations who participated in the decisions on Vietnam acted according to what we thought were the principles and traditions of this nation. We made our mistakes in light of those values, yet we were wrong, terribly wrong. By then it was too late. Many would argue that McNamara's admission came 30 years and 58,000 lives too late. The cost of Vietnam was high. And not just in human lives, as the American people trust and their leaders deteriorated. So did their willingness to follow them. Protests led to open rebellion and to society-wide turmoil. The era that had begun with the hope and idealism categorized by John F. Kennedy ultimately ended with the mistrust and cynicism associated with Richard Nixon. Whenever a leader breaks the law of solid ground, he pays a price in his leadership. McNamara and President Johnson lost the trust of the American people, and their ability to lead suffered as a result. And eventually McNamara resigned as Secretary of Defense, and Johnson, the consummate politician, recognized his weakened position, and he didn't run for re-elect. But the repercussions of broken trust didn't end there. The American people's distrust for politicians had continued to this day. No leader can break trust with his people and expect to keep influencing them. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Violate the law of solid ground and you diminish your influence as a leader. That's a strong ending. Here's how you can apply the law of solid ground to your life. 1, 2, and 3. 1, how trustworthy would your followers say you are? How can you measure their trust? By how open they are with you. That's how you can measure it. Do they openly share opinions with you, even the negative ones? Do they give you bad news as readily as good news? Do they let you know what's going on in their areas of responsibility? If not, they may not trust your character. How about your colleagues and your leader? Do they consistently put their trust in you? How do you measure their trust? By how much responsibility they entrust to you. If you regularly carry weighty responsibilities, that is a good sign that you are trustworthy. And if not, then you need to find out whether they doubt your competence or your character. Number 2, most high achievers spend time developing their professional skills. They seek to be highly competent and fewer focus on their character. What are you currently doing to develop your character? I recommend that you focus on these 3 main areas: integrity, authenticity, and discipline. To develop your integrity, make a commitment to yourself to be scrupulously honest. Don't shave the truth. Don't tell white lies. Don't fudge numbers. Be truthful, even when it hurts. To develop authenticity, be yourself with everyone. Don't play politics, role play, or pretend to be anything that you're not. And to strengthen your discipline, do the right things every day, regardless of how you feel. And then number 3, if you have broken trust with others in the past, then your leadership will always suffer until you try to make things right. First, apologize to whomever you have hurt or betrayed. If you can't make amends or restitution, then do so. Commit to work at re-earning their trust. The greater violation, the longer it will take. The onus is not on them to trust. The onus is on you to earn it. And if you have broken trust at home, start there before working to repair professional relationships. I like that. The onus is not on them to trust. The onus is on you to earn it. Once again, this guy is good. This guy is really good. I really feel like really great reading it, even the parts where it's like about war and stuff, and like I really love this book a lot. I hope you enjoyed it too. This was the law. This was number 6, the law of solid ground, and we covered quite a bit. I really like how he ended it with, in order to develop your character, you must focus on these 3 main areas: integrity, authenticity, and discipline. I love that. And how simply he put it on how to work on it. that's gold. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I know I did. Once again, shout out to you for being here, for investing time into your life, investing time into your personal and financial freedom. I'm excited for you, for all the blessings heading your way, and most importantly, for what is to come. The law of respect is next, and that's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. I'm excited for that. I'll see you soon. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you later. Bye.